Yeah, good sound. Okay, so everything that I just said in the intro wasn't on the live stream, but we're live streaming now. Technical glitches, gotta love it. Welcome to the first author hangout live stream on the Chronicles of Underrealm Patreon. Yeah, hope that you're here. Hope that you're able to see it and everything like that. And you can drop a comment either on YouTube or on the Patreon. Yeah, good sound. Okay, so everything that I just said. Okay, so now I'm playing in the back intro at wasn't myself. On the live stream, but we're one thing to consider: if you drop chat in YouTube, I will see it and I can answer it. But if you drop comments on the Patreon, they will stay there. They will last after that live stream. After the live stream, any comments that you leave in the YouTube live chat window, they vanish and go away forever. So if you want a question, if there's a question that you asked that maybe I don't see or that I'm not able to get to on the stream, I can answer it later on the Patreon. I can't answer it later on YouTube. So probably better in general to drop comments on the Patreon live stream. So this is the first one of these author hangouts, and so what I thought that these hangouts would be, we're not going to be able to do these hangouts for every single chronicle that comes out. I don't think, I don't think, unless something changes, I don't think we're going to be able to do a live author hangout for the next chronicle to come out, which is a real bummer because the author Rhea is super cool, and you're going to like her a lot. But she actually has another chronicle coming out in the first collection, so hopefully we'll be able to do one then. It's just it doesn't work out schedule wise right now. But anyway, what I kind of imagine these hangouts being is sort of an opportunity to talk about the story that just came out, and why it was written, and some of the ideas and stuff that went into it, and so that's what today is going to be. And then if you have any questions, if you want to drop any questions at all, just drop them, and I can also answer any questions if you've read the story already. So the first chronicle, and they're I'll try to preface things with spoilers, so if you haven't read the first chronicle already, I will discuss spoilers, but I will try to say each time, okay, this is a spoiler, or this, or and so don't listen for the next 30 seconds or whatever. So, but it's not really a spoiler to tell you what the first chronicle is about, because that's right there in the description. This is about a meeting between Lauren and Eben on the High King's seat, and it's pretty cool. And there's more to it than that. There's Eben's best friends are also there. Caleb and Theron are also present. And Mako on Eben's side of the table. It's funny, I was looking at it recently, and it's like it seems like it's a merging between the Nightblade epic and the Academy journals, but in all honesty, it's mostly the Academy journals. Lauren is the only representative of the Nightblade epic, whereas we get like 6 characters or 5 characters from the Academy journals, and then 1 character. No, I guess the shade is also, well, anyway. So how this story came about is that so I originally wrote the novel Shadeborn, and there was a night where Lauren went out exploring on the seat, trying to investigate some people who had recently attacked her and her friends. And so she went out searching, and she has her dagger, and she has the ability to track wizards with the dagger. And so she went out and she found the place, and she found some hair in the that allowed her to, and she tried burning it, and it was a wizard's hair, so she was able to go and track that wizard across the city. But she tracked them through the city, and then she tracked them all the way to the east, and they were still further east. And so she figured that they had sailed out across the water, and was later, quote unquote, proven to be right, because the the enemies eventually attacked from the east. And that was the entirety of it. That was the whole plan. There wasn't actually a greater plan than that when I originally wrote that chapter in Shadeborn. But then I was writing The Alchemist's Touch, the first book in the Academy journals, and that same moment in the timeline came up. And there was what was going on in the Academy Journal storyline. And I realized that Eben, sorry, like I said, I've been sick. Eben had, he was already, per the story, he was already involved via his family with what was going on and the impending attack on the seat. And Theron was already out exploring with him, on some nights and everything like that. And that's when I realized that it could have been not some shade, not some mysterious wizard, but it could have been Theron, especially since I had already said that, and this was just a weird kind of stroke of coincidence, but I had already said that that the hair that Lauren had found in the tavern had been blonde hair, and then when I had been creating Theron, she had naturally dark hair, but that she had dyed blonde, and so that was just perfect. And so it became Theron's hair, and she had actually, and it was the sort of thing where you could only put that together if you read both stories very, very closely and studied the timelines that are available in the back of the Underrealm volumes. And if you saw those, if you saw those and you analyzed them very carefully, you'd say, oh my God, that happened on the same night. Oh my God, Lauren wasn't chasing some random wizard. She was chasing Theron. And so it was at that point that I started to play around with the idea, and I did kind of play around with the idea of Lauren and Eben running into each other on the seat during that time period. And I thought about having that happen at some point in the Academy journals, but then I ended up deciding to scrap that and instead to write that as its own separate short story. Now, I was just going to write that as its own separate short story. That was going to be a cool thing that I was only going to give away to people on my email list. And there was another crossover story between the Nightblade Epic and the next new Underrealm book series that's going to come out. And I was thinking that I was going to take both of those short stories and just offer them as extras on my email list. And so that was, gosh, when was that? That was probably late 2016, mid to late 2016, that I first came up with the idea of those stories. And that was kind of the beginning of the Chronicles of Underrealm. Was I thought that each new Underrealm series, each new Underrealm set of books, new character, could get their own short story with some extra tie-in, some extra crossover information in the story. And then that could just be a thing that would be shared with my readership via my email list. And that was it. That was the whole concept of it. There was no idea of this actual thing being the Chronicles of Underrealm. So then, if I came up with that in late 2016, I would say I was thinking about it a lot after that. It was I was thinking about it. I was going, okay, I'll create those stories. I'll create those stories. And we were also moving into the phase where legacy books. One sec. So we were also moving into the phase where Legacy Books was now working with other authors and was going to start publishing books by other authors. And in the process of that, sometime early in 2017 was when I came up with the idea for the Chronicles as they exist today, a series of short stories that would come out 10 stories at a time, and they would include stories from a bunch of authors, not just me, but people from all over the place. And so that whole idea started to form and take shape, and I started reaching out to the authors who I was already working with, who we were already working with, and saying, would you be interested in writing short stories for the Chronicles? And then I started reaching out to other people who I knew online, who I knew were good writers, and who met with the sort of vision that we'd had for Legacy Books and everything. And hey, would this idea sound interesting to you? And for most people, the answer was yes. And and that's how the Chronicles came together. And it really all started with Tavern Crossings. That was sort of the start of everything having to do with the Chronicles. So that's pretty cool, and that's some of the good, interesting behind the scenes info on how the story came together. When it comes to the story itself, it's interesting to me that this is the first story I've ever written on my own. This is the first story I've ever written on my own, and the first one, period, in like 4 years, almost 5 years, that has multiple viewpoints. So if you've read the Underrealm books, prior to the Chronicles, you know that they always follow one character, and we only ever see that one character's POV. And Tavern Crossings, if you've read it, it has Lauren's POV, it has Evan's POV, and it has Mako's POV. And they interchange and interlink with each other. So that was interesting. It definitely made some things easier because there's a lot of moving parts in this story. There's a lot of people chasing each other around a bunch of different locations. And one of my favorite comments that I got on the story from a reader was that they felt like they could hear the Benny Hill music playing in the background. Which I love that, and I think is entirely appropriate. But it also made things a lot trickier because it was you had to figure out when was the right time to jump. You know what I mean? Like sometimes I would get to a point where I was writing about Lauren, and then I had to jump to Evan's perspective because I knew that I had to, in order for I had nothing immediate with Lauren, but there was something very immediate going on with Eben, so I had to jump to Eben. But then I'd get on Eben, and I'd keep going and going and going, and like nothing. There was no necessity to change away from Eben. And so Eben would go on for a section or a chapter that was, 3 times as long as what Lauren had just gone through. And that's when I had to do the most work of figuring out, no, wait, because like Lauren's not just sitting on her butt this whole time. What's happening with Lauren while this is going on? And so that was a really interesting challenge, and it's the first time that I've faced that in a very, very long time. Like I said, probably almost 5 years since the last time that I've written a story with multiple POVs. And I don't think that the stories that I was writing with multiple POVs back then were as sophisticated as the Underrealm stories. You know what I mean? So yeah. The other cool thing. And we are getting a little bit into spoiler territory here. So if you haven't read the story, you should probably just go read the story. But the other interesting thing was the interactions between Mako and Lauren, because a lot of the interactions between Mako and Lauren are very, very dependent on and based on the latest Nightblade epic book, Yaren. And in Yaren, there are scenes where Lauren is seeing, she's started to have her dreams, and she's seeing Mako in these dreams. And so a lot of their interaction was kind of established there. And if you noticed, if you were, I did have some people reading Yaren, and right from the moment that Mako first shows up, he's never named until all the way at the end of the book. But as soon as he shows up, a lot of people were like, that is 100% Mako, right? Like that has to be. And of course they were right. And it was just, they have a very interesting dynamic. And I tried at least to make it a different dynamic than either one of them has with anybody else. Lauren doesn't have a relationship with, she doesn't have interactions with anybody like the one she has with Mako. Mako doesn't have interactions with anybody the way he does with Lauren. Hey, Kristen's here. Hi, Kristen. When Mako, what do you call it? When Mako is interacting with Eben and his friends, he's very condescending and just a total asshole, and just treats them like whatever. When he's interacting with Talib and Halab, he's very, very it's a very different dynamic. He's a lot more open. He's a lot more honest. He kind of treats and respects them as peers. But he's still very, very confident. And with Lauren in the dreams in Yaren, he's almost a little, what's the word? It's not standoffish, it's not nervous, but he's a little bit more he's still very much got his asshole personality, but he's a little more cautious with Lauren than he is with other people. He's supposed to come off as a little bit unsure, and that's because he's never seen somebody else like him, or he's never seen somebody like like Lauren. Um, he thought he was special. I mean, and he is, but he thought he was unique. And now here's this person, and it's just it's kind of freaking him out a little bit. But the reason that he is that way in Yeren, like upon first meeting, like the first time he meets Lauren, there's no way he'd be that way. He wouldn't be cautious or nervous. He would be like, okay, there's something dangerous here, and I have to end the threat, because that is very Mako. And so what Tavern Crossings became for Mako was, it became the story that introduced him to Lauren, and then brought him to the point where he got over his initial impulse to just end this weird new thing that he had run into, and to the point of realizing something's going on here that I don't understand, and that's frightening, but I can't just kill my way out of the problem. And so Mako, for multiple reasons, was one of the most fun things to write in this story. His interactions with everybody are always really fun. But the only people that he really interacted with were Talib and whatnot. But getting to write from inside his head was sort of interesting, because it makes you understand, like, there's a little thing where you realize how tuned in Mako is to his dream site. And so and so there's always been this sense in the Academy journals that, well, if Mako happened not to like the look of somebody's face, he'd probably kill them, right? Like, that seems like a decently Mako thing to do. But I don't actually think that that's true. Because, I mean, of course it's not true if there was some reason he needed them to be alive or whatever. But you do see a moment in Tavern Crossings where, and this is a spoiler for the story for sure, where the barman comes out of the bar and surprises Mako and just looks at him a little suspiciously. And Mako's like, yeah, I don't like that, and just kills him. And so he will do that. Like, it's not a thing of like, oh, there's like some hidden puppy underneath all this thing. Like, Mako tries to look all badass and sound all badass, but really he's just a giant teddy bear underneath. No. Mako may have his kind impulses and his kind streaks, but fundamentally, murder is just not even a thing. It's no question. It's no hesitation. He talks in the Academy journals about how he recognizes that, like, Halab is a much kinder, a much gentler being than the previous head of the Drayden family, and how the Drayden family, beforehand, he used to have to kill all the time, much more than he does now, and so he respects Halab for that. But what's important to remember there is that before Halab, he had to kill a lot more, and he did. He didn't do anything about it, like, as far as we know. He didn't kill the previous head of the family, Drayden, or anything like that. Like, he might have thought it was more annoying or had like some sort of, but he totally did it. So it was very funny and very fun to write from Mako's perspective in this story. And then, of course, there's the big final climax between Lauren and Mako at the end of the story, which is very definitely a setup. We've already had some people in the Underrealm Facebook group sort of comment on this and explain some things about the Lauren and Mako climax in Tavern Crossings, and then their relationship in Yaren, and that's very definitely, the two things are very definitely linked. They very, very definitely have a connection between the two of them. That scene is a look forward, even though this is happening well in the past of where both storylines are at right now. That is a look forward for the future of at least one Underrealm series, and we'll see exactly how it plays out with the others. But yeah. Let me see what else. There's a thing I wanted to mention about one of the world building things in Tavern Crossings. By the way, again, if you do happen to be watching, feel free to drop a comment on YouTube or on Patreon if there are things that you want to know about the story, because these things are a Q&A. What was the other thing that I wanted to say? Oh, okay. So if anybody was reading it and saw the name of the tavern, and you were like, what? I just wanted to let you know that was actually something while I was writing the story. That was something that was suggested online. I do all of my writing on live streams. It actually looks kind of a lot like this, except that also my computer screen is up where you can see it. And I was like, I need a name for a tavern. And if I'm not mistaken, it was Haley, one of our frequent live viewers, who suggested the Ass and Bell. So that became the name of that tavern, and that is now a tavern on the High King's Seat until the end of time. It will always be there. So enjoy that, and if you know Haley in our Discord server or whatever, you can thank her / blame her for that, depending on your delicate sensibilities. So that's just one of those weird little world building details that came up that I'm sure some people were like, wait, what? So there you go. All right, so we've hit a half-hour mark on the broadcast now. If there were comments and questions and stuff, I would stay a bit longer to answer them. Oh, Kristen says, I thought it was Lauren, but it's been longer than 2 weeks, so maybe not. You might be right, though. It might be Lauren Brender. It's one of those British women. Yeah, it might have been Lauren. All right, so it's either Lauren or Haley, so you can thank either or of them. No, I think it was Lauren. Now that I'm thinking about it again. Anyway, if there were questions and comments and stuff, I would stay on a little bit longer to answer them. But since we, one, don't have any, and two, since, as you've been able to tell, and as I mentioned before, I have been sick, I am gonna be taking off at this point. Thanks thanks to Meg and Kristen for being here live. Thanks anyone else who is here live, even if you didn't comment, I appreciate it. These things are a little bit of an experiment, so if you're watching this back after the fact and you're like, you know what I want to see in the author live hangouts is blah, let me know on the Patreon, and I will make sure to try and include that in future streams. Not sure exactly when the next hangout is going to be, but of course you're a patron, so you will find out just as soon as anyone will. So yeah. Thanks so much for coming and hanging out and watching, and I really hope that you enjoy the story. Really hope that you enjoy the one that's going to be coming out this week. This week's story I'm actually really excited about. I'm excited to see people's reactions to it. It's definitely a very different sort of Underrealm story, and I think people are going to enjoy it. But yeah, I will catch you next time. Thanks so much for being a supporter of the Chronicles, and see you then. Bye.